Oil prices are higher today, only here, West Texas Intermediate, by $1 a barrel, as the U.S. is working to take out Iran's ability to launch any missiles, launch any drones at tankers that are crossing from the Persian Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz, as Operation Epic Fury nears the 2-week mark. Welcome back to the second hour of the Big Money Show. I'm Dagan McDowell, along with my astute, delightful co-host, and with us for this hour. Yeah, delightful wasn't good enough. Barron's Investor Circle newsletter editor Josh Schaefer. Great to see you, Josh.
Good to be back with you guys.
President Trump writing on Truth Social early this morning, quote, America is destroying Iran's military, economy, and leadership, and warning Tehran, watch what happens today. The White House is looking for the Navy to escort oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz once it's militarily possible. But the Pentagon says that remains tactically complex. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says that the administration is working on a plan to reopen the strait.
We have a plan for every option here. We're working with our interagency partners, and that's not a strait we're going to allow to remain contested or with a lack of flow of commercial goods. So we're aware of that. We're laser focused on our military objectives, but also want to make sure our partners across this government understand we're working with you to make sure that energy flows.
Energy is flowing through some pipelines. I just want to keep pointing that out because, quite frankly, the fact that West Texas Intermediate is not at $100 a barrel, is not at $1.20 or even higher, is a testament to the energy independence and dominance that we have achieved through the Trump administration and the very fact that we could take on this terrorist regime.
Well, Dagan, I'll take it a step further for you. And I think another reason why WTI is sitting at about $95 a barrel and isn't higher is because I think at this point, the market expects that the Strait of Hormuz is going to open at some point in the soon future, right? I think in the next couple weeks, probably by the end of March. And so if you look at just other futures contracts on oil, right, and you start sort of mapping this out, what's the market pricing that oil's going to be at in June, July, or August, and you match that with some estimates, you're looking at essentially investors expecting maybe Brent, now I'll use Brent instead of WTI, Brent's going to fall a little bit below 90 by August. And that basically prices in a closure of the Strait of Hormuz for a month, right? So just for March. They don't think that this is going to be an ongoing forever thing or a 2-month thing or a 3-month thing. I think that would be the biggest issue is if that sort of starts to shift and investors start to think, I don't know when this thing's ever going to open again. Is it really going to reopen for the U.S.?
So can I ask you a follow-up on that?
Sure.
Do you get us any sense in the markets that people who know oil markets and they know how these products flow, right? They understand this intuitively and deeply. Do you get any sense that those guys think that President Trump or the Secretary of War had no idea what they were going to do about the Strait of Hormuz? Do those guys think that we had no plan? Is that your read of how markets are reacting to?
No, I think the problem is, Brian, is that they're a little bit, the administration broadly is a little bit less in control of what happens next here, because I think what's moving oil prices more over the past couple of days is Iran continuing to fire missiles, right? And so until they're not able to fire missiles, you can't control necessarily when they're going to do that, right? Until you eliminate the possibility of them doing that, and then sure, now they can no longer do it. But as long as they're able to do that, that's what's putting pressure on the upside to oil, in my view.
I want to point out the people who continually write these stories that our military had no plan for the Strait of Hormuz almost completely overlap with the people who insisted Biden had complete command of his job as president. Okay, right. These are not people who understand reality. I'm not saying everything's perfect in the Strait of Hormuz, but these are not the people who should be critiquing whether or not we have a plan, whether or not the Secretary of War has a plan. He gets critiqued for going up to the podium and sometimes getting a little hot under the collar about the questions he's being asked. But when you look into the eyes of people who lied to Americans on issue after issue after issue, and then they're asking you if you had a detailed plan for the Strait of Hormuz, I'd probably get a little upset as well. I think the time frames that the press is working on for this are not economic time frames. They're not military time frames. They are political time frames. And that would infuriate me if I'm trying to prosecute this conflict in Iran.
I agree with you. Of course they had a plan. Of course they knew what the risks were. Of course they know what they're doing. The question that I have at this point, to your point, Josh, is why is it taking so long? Saturday will be 2 weeks. If we keep saying we took out their Navy and we've gotten them down in terms of their firepower capacity, why is it taking so long to decimate it? I don't have the answer to that question. Somehow they just keep, pulling stuff out of the arsenals to keep this going. But we made the point yesterday, Brian, that acting this way with respect to the Strait, to me, is an act of desperation. It's the last straw that they have to fire. So I'm hoping that that sputtering point for them comes pretty soon. But,
My concern, and Brian, I'm not disagreeing with you and Jackie, but I think some of the messaging is made me confused. There have been conflicting reports about mines in the Strait of Hormuz. The UK Defense Secretary said that the Iranians may have started mining in the Strait. Secretary Bessent, though, said, quote, "We know that they have not mined the Straits." And then U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright suggested that we could start escorting tankers through the Strait by the end of March. That's soon. That lines up with the timeline of a couple weeks from now. And look, I understand, as Steve Forbes says, in war there's chaos and there are unknowns and things can pivot. So we may not know if there are mines and if there are not. And of course, these tankers are going to take the precautionary route and not go unless they are confident that there are not mines being laid. But I think that's where the market gets confused of like, are there mines or are they not? Have we decimated them or have we not? And I would just, sort of again point out from the UMich this morning, in the 9 days before versus the 9 days after, this is what University of Michigan had to say. Interviews completed prior to the military action in Iran showed an improvement in sentiment from last month, but then lower readings seen in the 9 days after that completely erased all of those gains. Gasoline prices have exerted the most immediate impact felt by consumers through the magnitude of the pass-through prices to other goods, still yet unknown. So, Brian, you talk about who's operating on an economic timeline. I'm not saying we don't do this because I'm worried about the price of oil tomorrow. But I think you have to be prepared for that pushback when people have seen the price at the pump. And we've talked about how the cost of gasoline goes into every single thing that we touch and breathe. And yes, it's spring planting season and we can't get fertilizer for our guys in the Midwest. And so I think that's sort of the economic issue that people, I think, have a right to question.
And they ought to hold their government accountable. I agree with that. I think Congressman Tim Burchett made that point very well and somewhat amusingly the other day. Hold us accountable for this. I will point out, I love that the UK's weighing in on mines.
I know.
The UK sat around for a few days. Hey, we'd love your help. We can't do that. We're going to give away our strategically placed islands. We're not going to let you use them. We're not going to send our carriers. So, UK, maybe you could spare us your analysis until you've shown up and done something helpful. I don't know that they have. They certainly weren't there in the first few days of this thing.
That's fair.
I think one of the biggest issues is just how long it's going to take to reopen the Strait, too, right? We didn't really bring that point up yet in this part of the discussion, but it's not a switch. Right? The lights just don't immediately come back on, and all of the oil that was flowing flows through. So to Taylor's point, when you start talking about sentiment and you start talking about the impact on gas prices and how long will gas prices just go up for a month and then come back down, or are we talking about gas prices being higher for a 6-month period here, and that's going to have more of an impact on sentiment? I think that remains to be the biggest question, which is why you want to start getting it open sooner.
With the release of 400 million barrels of oil from all of the strategic petroleum reserves, coupled with the fact that 50% or about half of what normally would come through the Strait of Hormuz is still moving. Pipeline, Iran still loading tankers at Carr Island. So you've got until the end of the month to wrap this up. That's in essence based on just the number of barrels that are out there, that are moving, and that will be on the market. It's going to take us 4 months, the U.S., to deliver all the barrels, the 172 million barrels of oil. It takes 4 months to get that out of the SPR here. It should be more full, but I mentioned this yesterday. The United States So
The same guys complaining about having no plans are the ones who refused to let us fill this thing up when we could have done it at like $10 a barrel back in the day.
Also,
thank you, Schumer.
It's mandated for a decade that there were forced sales of oil from the SPR as a budgetary offset by the government. So that and it yielded not even $19 billion, but now it's going to cost $20 billion to completely refill it to capacity. It's just the idiocy of Washington that using our strategic petroleum reserve for something that it was never meant for. You know, funding their profligacy.
Yeah, for sure.
Netflix.